Hello's my YouTube family. There are stories that never made it to the news. Whispers buried deep and where no light reaches. Secrets too dark for the world to believe. I search the blackest corners of the internet and far beyond to bring you the truth they tried so hard to erase. Tales that were deleted, covered up, abandoned in digital shadows. But fear remembers everything. These are not just stories. They're warnings. And if you're still watching, if you're still here, it's already too late. Welcome to Fears, and now let the horror begin. It was a rainy evening in late October, the kind of night when the streets were empty, and the only sounds were the occasional rustle of leaves blowing in the wind. I had just returned to my small apartment after a long day at work. The rain pattered gently against the windows, and the air was thick with the smell of damp concrete. I opened the door to my apartment, tossed my keys on the counter, and began to change out of my work clothes. As I walked into the kitchen, I noticed something strange. The small coffee table by the window had been moved just slightly to the right. I froze, the hairs on the back of my neck standing up. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. I glanced around, wondering if I had maybe moved it earlier without realizing, but I knew I hadn't. I was always careful about where I placed things, and I certainly never left the coffee table in such a position. I shrugged it off as paranoia and continued to unpack my bag. But as I did, a strange sensation crept over me, a feeling that I wasn't alone. My heart began to race, and a cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I walked back into the living room, eyes scanning every corner. Nothing looked out of place, but I couldn't shake the eerie feeling. As I turned to head down the hallway, I froze once more. The bathroom light was on. I hadn't left it on. I knew I hadn't. Slowly, I walked toward the bathroom, my footsteps echoing in the silence. I stopped just outside the door, my hand gripping the handle. My breath was shallow, my mind racing. Then I heard it. A faint sound from inside, the soft creak of the bathroom door, as if someone had been standing just behind it, waiting. I swung the door open, my pulse pounding in my ears. No one was there. But there was something else. The mirror, which had been perfectly clear earlier, was now fogged over, and in the mist, scrawled in what looked like smeared dirt, were two words: "I'm watching." My stomach dropped. I quickly scanned the apartment, panic rising in my chest. There was no sign of forced entry. Nothing appeared to have been stolen. It was as if whoever had been here wanted to leave a message, a warning of some sort. I checked the windows, the locks on the doors, all secure. But the message on the mirror made it clear that someone had been in my apartment, someone who knew exactly what they were doing. I spent the rest of the evening in a daze, too terrified to leave, yet too scared to stay. Every creak of the building seemed to grow louder. Every gust of wind felt like someone brushing past me. The worst part? I knew whoever had been in my apartment was still watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. It was a warm summer evening when I last saw Gabe. We had been best friends since childhood, growing up in the same small town in rural Oregon. Gabe was the kind of guy who could make you laugh even on the darkest days. He had a knack for always knowing what to say, always knowing what to do to brighten your mood. So when I got a call from him one evening, asking if I wanted to hang out at his place, I didn't hesitate. I arrived at his house just before sunset. The setting sun painted the sky in deep oranges and pinks, casting long shadows across the yard. Gabe's house sat on the outskirts of town, far from any neighbors. It was an old two-story building that creaked and groaned with age, but it was home to Gabe. I knocked on the door, and after a moment Gabe opened it. His face was pale, and there was something about his expression that seemed off. He didn't greet me with his usual smile. Instead, he just stood there staring at me for a moment before stepping aside to let me in. "Hey man, you all right?" I asked, sensing something wasn't right. Gabe didn't answer right away. He motioned for me to sit on the couch, and I did, my curiosity growing by the second. "I'm sorry about this," he finally said, his voice shaky. I need to tell you something." I watched as Gabe sat down across from me, his hands trembling as he rubbed them together. "You've been acting strange for the past couple of weeks," I said, trying to make sense of what was going on. "Is something wrong?" Gabe took a deep breath, his eyes darting around the room, as if he were looking for something or someone. I think someone's been following me," he said quietly. I stared at him, unsure of how to respond. Gabe was never one to get paranoid. "What do you mean, like just some random person?" "No," he shook his head. "Not random. I think it's someone—" "I know." I leaned forward, listening closely. "What makes you think that?" Gabe's eyes locked onto mine, a look of fear in them that I had never seen before. "It started a few weeks ago. I kept seeing someone in the woods behind my house. At first I thought it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But then it started happening more often. I'd see someone standing just outside the trees watching me." "Have you told anyone else about this?" He nodded, but there was a look of hesitation in his eyes. "I tried, but no one believes me. They all think I'm just stressed or imagining things. But last night I saw them again, and this time they weren't just standing in the woods, they were inside my house." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What do you mean, inside your house?" Gabe's voice dropped to a whisper. "I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of footsteps downstairs. I grabbed a flashlight and went to check it out. But when I got down there, no one was there. But I could feel someone watching me, and I could hear breathing and close by. I tried to keep my composure, but the unease was growing. Gabe wasn't the kind of guy to make things up." "Did you see who it was?" "No," Gabe whispered, "but I know they were watching me, and I'm not sure who it is, but I think it's someone from my past." At that moment, the room seemed to grow colder. I glanced around the room, suddenly feeling like we weren't alone. Gabe shifted uncomfortably on the couch, his eyes wide, as if he had just heard something behind me. I turned around, but there was nothing. Then I heard it, a soft thud from upstairs, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps. My blood ran cold. "Gabe," I whispered, "who's up there?" He shook his head, his face pale. "No one, it can't be anyone, I'm the only one here." But the footsteps continued, and they were getting closer. Gabe's eyes were wide with terror now. "It's them. They've come for me." Suddenly the door to the room slammed shut, and the room plunged into darkness. The only sound was the rapid beating of our hearts. That was the last time I saw Gabe. I tried calling him the next morning, but his phone went straight to voicemail. When I went to his house, the door was wide open, but the inside was completely empty. No sign of Gabe. No sign of anyone. I don't know what happened that night, but I've spent the years since trying to find out. I've gone back to Gabe's house more times than I can count, but every time it's the same. Empty, silent, and freezing cold. And every time, I can't shake the feeling that someone, or something, is still watching me from the shadows. It was an ordinary Tuesday evening when I received the message from Jude, a long-time follower of my horror channel. His message was short, but it carried a weight I couldn't ignore. "I need to tell you something. Please, keep it anonymous." The message came with a file attachment, a voice memo. Hesitant but intrigued, I opened it, listening carefully to his trembling words. "Hey, this is Jude. I don't know if this will help, but I have to share this. It's been eating at me for months and I can't sleep anymore. What happened to me was real. I swear it was. And I just need someone to know." The voice sounded panicked, frantic even, as if he were on the verge of breaking. There was a moment of silence, then the story began. Jude lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Raleigh, North Carolina. It wasn't the kind of place where anything unusual ever happened. The streets were lined with oak trees, and families walked their dogs in the evenings, chatting about their days. It was a peaceful town where nothing ever seemed out of the ordinary. That was until one particular week in early spring. "It started innocently enough," Jude said. He was walking home from the nearby grocery store one night, a short walk from his apartment. He usually took the same route, a shortcut through a small park near the edge of town. The park was always quiet, especially after dark, but that night something was different. The streetlights flickered as he passed, casting long, unnerving shadows on the path. Jude felt a shiver crawl up his spine, but he brushed it off as nothing. But then the sound began, a low, guttural growl. Jude stopped in his tracks, his heart racing. He looked around, but the park was empty, save for the trees swaying gently in the wind. It could have been an animal, he thought, maybe a stray dog or something, but the growl was too deep, too unnatural. It sent a cold chill down his spine. He continued walking, trying to shake off the feeling of being watched, but the growling followed him. At first, it was distant, echoing through the park, but the closer he got to the edge, the louder it grew. By the time he reached the street, the growl was almost deafening. It wasn't just coming from one direction, it was surrounding him. Panic set in as Jude broke into a run, his footsteps pounding against the pavement as the growling echoed through the air. He turned the corner and headed for home, hoping to escape whatever was following him. But as he neared his apartment building, he saw something that made his blood run cold. A shadow. Standing under one of the streetlights, a tall, hunched figure loomed, its face hidden in the darkness. Jude's breath caught in his throat as the growl grew louder, coming from the figure itself now. The creature's presence felt like it was pulling him in, drawing him closer against his will. Jude ran the final stretch to his apartment, the growl still in his ears, echoing as if it were inside his head. He slammed the door shut behind him and locked it, his hands trembling. But it didn't stop there. For the next several nights, Jude would hear the growl again. It would follow him as he walked home, coming closer and closer each time. His nights were filled with nightmares of the creature that haunted him, its shadowy form always lurking just beyond his view. He couldn't escape it, no matter where he went. One night, after an especially long day at work, Jude decided he couldn't take it anymore. He gathered all his courage and decided to confront whatever was haunting him. Armed with nothing but a flashlight and sheer determination, he ventured back to the park where it all started. He walked slowly, every step echoing through the empty park. The growl started almost immediately, but this time it was different. It wasn't just an animal, it sounded like a warning, a threat. Jude shone the flashlight into the darkness, hoping to catch a glimpse of whatever it was. And then there it was, the creature. It stood in the center of the park, its long, twisted limbs reaching toward the sky, its face obscured by the shadows. The growl came from its chest, vibrating the air with an unnatural intensity. Its eyes, if they could even be called eyes, were nothing more than two black hollow sockets staring right at Jude. The creature didn't move at first, but then, as if sensing his presence, it began to shuffle toward him, its body contorting in unnatural ways as it came closer. Jude's heart hammered in his chest as he realized he had made a terrible mistake. He turned to run, but his legs wouldn't move. It felt like something was holding him in place, like an invisible force had locked him in the park. The last thing Jude remembers is the creature's growl filling his ears, growing louder and louder until everything went black. The next morning he woke up in his apartment, confused, exhausted, and with no memory of how he got back. But the growl had stopped. For a few days he thought maybe it was over, that it had been a bad dream or some kind of hallucination. But then the growl started again, faint at first, but growing louder with each passing night. Jude believes that whatever he encountered that night in the park is still out there, waiting for him. And worse, it's watching him. "I don't know how long I've got," Jude's voice broke in the message, "but I need you to share this. I think it's coming for me again." What you just heard, Han, was more than a story. It was a glimpse into what waits in the dark. Some truths should never be found, but now that you've heard them, they're coming closer. Subscribe while you still can. This was Fears. Until next time, keep your lights on.